Welcome to Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. Join the Podcast Mogul Phil Better as he interviews successful entrepreneurs that make their living in the digital world. Now, let's join your host, Phil Better, and his special guest today on Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast.
Welcome, digital entrepreneurs, and welcome back to another power-packed episode of Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. I am, of course, your host with the most, Phil Better, the Podcast Mogul, and today we have a true guest in the innovator in the world of digital marketing. Our guest is one of the brilliant minds behind ChimeHouse Media, the one-of-a-kind Facebook boutique ads agency that specializes in crafting strategies tailored for business owners with podcasts. You know, like me over here. Teaming up with her husband, they've carved out a niche helping podcasters skyrocket their downloads, build sustainable email lists, and expand their audience, all without the constant pressure of having to show up live online to grow their show and business. It's a game-changing approach that has garnered attention and acclaim worldwide. People, like, you should just see what she's posting on her Facebook page. Beyond her professional prowess, our guest and her husband share a passion for the finer things in life, you know, like cheese, wine, and the great outdoors. And of course, their two Boston Terriers, favorite little puppies. Now, without further ado, let's welcome a force to be reckoned with inside the podcasting marketing world and world domination inside that same spot. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, podcasters, entrepreneurs from all over the world, please welcome Megan Shields. Megan, thank you very much for being here.
You have the best intros. Thank you so much. I get so hyped up every time. So thank you for having me. I'm excited to spend some time together.
It is my absolute pleasure to hype you up because it's my job. If I'm not hyping you up, who's going to hype you up on this show? I can't just be like, hey, I have Megan Shields, let's talk. You know, like everybody's going to be like, who is this Megan Shields? I want to be pumped up beforehand. And I've always wanted to be like a rap person's hype person, you know, just get on the mic and just like hype up the crowd and then the rapper comes out or the artist comes out. So I do it.
I 10 out of 10 believe you could do that for sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Megan. Megan, we're going to jump straight into this because, you know, well, I want to know, why did you become an entrepreneur? What was it that decided, hey, I want to be one of these crazy people that work 80 hours when they say they want freedom?
Yeah, right. Boy, that's true. Especially this week in my life. But so my journey kind of started way back when I was like 15 and I was waiting tables back then and ended up working in the service industry for like 10 years. And I loved it. I loved working with people. I loved being able to influence my income based on the level of service I provided. And so, you know, when I turned like 25, I had the crisis of like, I need a real job, quote, quote. And so I was looking at real jobs and I'm like, I can't afford to take a real job because I had been working for tips for so long. So I went into sales. And when I did that, I was a commission-based advisor working at a financial services firm. So it was like entrepreneurship, but I was getting a lot of education and training. But then they sucked me into management because I was doing well. So when you're in sales, they're like, come into management and make more minions like you and build a big sales team. And I got sucked into that. And so I was the partner at the firm for a few years and it just was a lot. And it really ran its course. And so I ended up, and in that time too, I also moved to Charlotte from Ohio. And the pandemic happened. I mean, it's just been like a bananas, like 5 years. But yeah, so I hit like the 6 or 7 year mark back in 2020. And then I ended up starting our business during COVID as some extra income, like a bajillion other people. And because I was becoming too unruly in the role I was in, where you know, that industry is very like, oh, you're an entrepreneur, you're building a book of business, like run your team like a business, you know, you have all this flexibility. Like I was 1099 for God's sakes. And then they were like, you need to tell me exactly what you're doing all day long. And you need to do this. Like you need to come into the office, even though nobody was there. And I just was like, I became too unruly. I was like, no. And I was just like, I don't think that this environment is for me anymore. I was like, I like the freedom. I need the freedom. So I started my business like late 2020 and I quit my career in April of 2021, let go of all my securities licenses, my insurance licenses, all the things I worked super duper hard for, and have gone all in on my business. And yeah, I'm loving it.
I'm getting that feeling that you're not regretting any of that decision to say goodbye, corporate
No.
world.
Yeah, I'd rather go through the suck for myself than go through the suck for somebody else.
Very true. I love that. That is, I'm going to quote that. That's going to be the opening quote. I'd rather do the suck for myself than the suck for someone else. That's going to be great. And then you hit the intro. Oh, it's going to be beautiful. So when you're in the corporate world, you're completely in a different space than you are now. Yes, you have the sales aspect, which any company has sales, because without sales, you don't make money. But how did you go from, hey, I'm going to be doing sales for like insurance and things that save people money and plan for their future, to we're going to touch on Facebook ads? Like, had you touched before, or was it just like, look, I'm just going to put all these bread baskets in one go?
Yeah. So it's a little bit of a long story, but bear with me. So when I started in the sales role, I was almost 25 years old. So whatever, I was 24, and I had been working in the service industry. So in the insurance business and in financial services, they're like, sell your friends and family. And I'm like, oh, my friends make sandwiches and like work at a bar. So that's not going to work. So I was like, how am I going to build this book of business? How am I going to build this business with like no real like warm market? So what I ended up doing was I got on LinkedIn, because in financial services, when you hold securities licenses, you're really limited on the way that you can market yourself in the different channels and things like that you can use. So we were able to use LinkedIn. So I got on there and I just networked like crazy, had tons of meetings, was more strategic about it to like get me into different businesses and get connected with other people. And it went really, really well. And in that industry, it's very like old world of like cold call and blah, blah. I'm like, no, I'd rather die. And so I used LinkedIn and I had a lot of success. So everyone was like, what is this sorcery that you're doing? And I'm like, it's the internet, man. Like, hello. And so I ended up teaching people at the firm. I was teaching the partners, I was teaching the managers, I was teaching other agents. And I became like the LinkedIn girl. And that was fun. It was great. And then when I switched and moved to a different firm, when I moved to Charlotte, the same thing kind of happened again, where I was brand new to the city. I didn't know anybody, but I was in a position where I was recruiting, I was hiring, I was interviewing, and I was building a book of business again. So it was a lot of things happening. And I didn't know anybody here. So I got on LinkedIn and I did the same thing. And then so they said the same thing too. They were like, how are you doing this? You just moved here. You don't know anybody, like blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I'm using LinkedIn. Do you like not know what's up with that? So then I ended up, they're like, well, can you partner with the marketing team and teach people how to leverage the site to like make sales and build a brand and all that kind of stuff? I was like, sure. And so that's when I was like, okay, this is a skill that people are really interested in. And because I had switched firms, I had more flexibility because I had gone from a W-2 to a 1099, which was intentional so that I could start something on the side. And so I was like, I think I'm going to start a business around like LinkedIn consulting and just kind of see what happens. But in that time, as Facebook listens to us, even though they don't admit it, I got served a Facebook ad about starting a digital marketing side hustle. And it was a webinar funnel, and I was super green to everything. So I slid right through that funnel. And at the end of it, the gal was like, the webinar, the bulk of the webinar was like, here's how to know if it's like a viable option, right? Like it's a problem people have, they're willing to pay to solve it, all the standard stuff that we check the green lights for when starting a business. And I was like, yeah, this LinkedIn thing will work then. It seems like, okay, great. Like I kind of knew all that, but whatever. And at the end, she's like, well, if you don't know what you want to do, I ran Facebook and Instagram ads for people. And I was like, well, that's really interesting. I was like, I already know LinkedIn well. I obviously am on Facebook and Instagram, but I'm like, if I learn it from that angle of paid advertising, these are the three main platforms where most businesses are. So I thought that it complemented really well. So I ended up investing in myself and I bought a course on Facebook ads. And so for about the first year, I did both. I was doing ads and I was doing the LinkedIn coaching and things like that. And then, with COVID and all that stuff, everybody was going online. And so the Facebook ads piece just really took off and I kind of quit doing the LinkedIn stuff. And here I am.
I love it. I love it. And what made you decide to go work with podcasters? Because like historically, this domain that we are currently trying to take over isn't known for money, particularly before 2020. Podcasters were looked at more as a hobby than a financial source of income.
Mhm.
So, what made you want to transform over to podcasts?
Yeah, so I was working with a lot of, especially because I started in COVID and everybody was creating digital products and courses and moving online. And if people didn't have a presence, they were like, oh shit, I need a presence. So everybody was going online. And I worked a lot with coaches and course creators in that time, did a lot of live launching, a lot of webinar stuff, things like that, list building. And I kind of got like burned out. I was like, I'm not really enjoying, what I was doing, the people I was working with. But I was like, what am I going to do? Because I have so much knowledge on this. And so I was just kind of like trying to figure it out. And in that time, I had a friend of mine approach me who is a podcast coach and he has a membership and obviously is a podcaster. And he was like, nobody is doing Facebook ads for podcasters. And because his community is all business owners that are leveraging their podcasts to nurture their audience. It's part of their marketing strategy, position themselves as experts, that sort of thing. So he's like, I'll be your guinea pig. Let's try this. And he's like, there's, 3 things that podcasters care about: download growth, list growth, and getting seen on social media. And he's like, if you can create an ad strategy that does that with no tech and no money, because he's like, people don't have money. Like you said, with podcasters, generally, you're not bringing in a ton of money as a podcaster. And I was like, oh my God, how the hell am I going to do this? But it ended up working out really, really great. And I got really immersed into the podcasting community. And I will say, like, my clients are all business owners with podcasts for the most part. Generally, if you're a hobbyist and you're not necessarily doing your podcast as an income source, you don't want to monetize or anything, it doesn't really make sense a lot of times to pay for ads, right? So a lot of my clients they're all business owners. But yeah, it was like totally not something I had planned on, but he had come to me and then I ended up just getting immersed in the podcasting world and I've loved it. Like on paper, my clients look very similar. Like a lot of them are coaches. A lot of them have digital programs and stuff, but there's something about like the mindset of a podcaster that is just like so much better. I love the collaboration. I love the vibe. Like it's just been a breath of fresh air, like into my business and it's been awesome.
Yeah, I think the reason why podcasters are so collaborative is because we started off as hobbyists. Like this was a hobbyist world. So we had to work together to figure out, okay, how can we help each other grow? Or do you know a secret? So we're all sharing little secrets here and there. And then when we started getting that influence from the entrepreneurs entering our space who were like, we're going to take this to a 10 because we want to make some money.
Yeah.
Then they're sharing with us how they're doing it. We're sharing with them how to get better podcasting. So it's ingrained the just the subculture of podcasting is just to help everybody.
Yeah, I love it. And that's how I work best. And I love that too. Like I love connecting people. I am also the president of the American Marketing Association chapter in Charlotte here. So like I do a lot of in my spare time.
Between 80 hours of work, I help out, as a marketing
I help out a little bit. But I love that. Like I love connecting people and putting on, great events where people can connect and collaborate. And so it's just been a really great space to be in with, in the podcasting space, because it's just the same way that I like to work and function and live my life.
That's great. I love that. With everything you've done, what has been one of the most interesting results you've gotten from working with business podcasters with their ad results? Megan, I believe you're frozen. Oh, I thought I saw a blink. Megan, can you hear me? We're having some technical difficulties.
two. Those that have different colors.
Just sent her a message. There we go.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It's fine. I forgive you.
Well, internet.
All right. So I don't know where I was.
You were asking me like, what are the most interesting results?
Yes.
That was the question. So if you want to start there, you can probably just.
We
edit
will.
it and
So
put it
hold
back
on.
together.
So Megan, I'm wondering, with working with so many people over the last few years since COVID, what have been some of the interesting results you've gotten from podcasters, for podcasters?
Yeah. So the interesting thing about podcasting is like the data analytics on the back end is terrible. So you got to get a little scrappy in trying to figure out how things are kind of working on the back end when you're sending paid traffic to the show. But something interesting that I realized with a couple different clients in the past couple of weeks in taking a look at their back end was one of our clients, we had 100% increase in downloads. And this is just in a 30-day period. So 100% increase in downloads, an 86% increase in engaged listeners, which is really interesting. Yeah. And like a 36% increase in followers of her show. And then another client that I was working with in taking a look at that, what we also noticed was that the people that were coming from the ads were listening to her episodes all the way through, which was really, really interesting. So yeah, it's just been interesting to like be kind of in a different space where before it was like, I'm like, oh, what's the cost per lead or like the webinar, you know, that kind of stuff. And now it's just really interesting to take a look at the back end of, okay, how are people interacting with this podcast? How, like, what are they listening to? Because one of the other things I also noticed, because a lot of my clients are coaches and things like that, I always generally have them do a solo episode. That's what we use for the ads, not necessarily a guest episode, because we want them to be positioned as the expert. And quite frankly, you don't want to pay to advertise somebody else. And so when people were going to the whole podcast, they were actually choosing all of the solo episodes. So when we were running to the whole show, those were all the ones that we saw an uptick in, which just goes to show, like, I believe that, like, I believe in positioning yourself as an expert and using a solo episode, but it's interesting to see the data reflected back, and that's what these people want to listen to as well when they're coming there to learn about this person as an authority figure and engage with them in that way. So it's been really interesting to see a lot of that.
Now, you mentioned a few things. First off, with the followers and the average consumption of the podcast, I'm taking it that you're going through the Apple side of the results, or are you using the Spotify as well, or their hosting platform? Which platform?
Yeah, I'm looking at whatever they have.
Okay. Okay, good.
Yeah, whatever they have. If they're on Buzzsprout, I'm going into Buzzsprout. If they have Apple Podcasts, I'm going into Apple Podcasts. If they're on Spotify, previously Anchor, like, I'm looking at that and I'm aggregating all the data together. So whatever they've got, I want to see.
Okay, good. Interesting. I love this. I love all the stuff that comes with it, what has been what would you say has been your biggest investment in yourself so far in starting your new the ChimeHouse Media?
You mean monetarily or most impactful? Which
Well,
way
I
are you
want
going?
for yourself, like you've invested in yourself, like you invested in yourself to take that course. But overall, in the last 2 years, let's say, apart from that course, what other investments in yourself have you done that you've seen already start to pay off?
Mm. Well, I can talk about a mistake that I made making an investment in myself.
Yes, that's all
Um,
that is new. No one has done that yet, so I love that.
yeah, yeah. So I run my business with my husband, so it's a different dynamic than just me. And we were looking for some coaching and got referred into this coaching program that was insanely expensive, like $10,000. And it was not what we wanted it to be. And it didn't do what we wanted it to do for us. And it was a bad business decision. And so we've learned a lot from that though. And there were some things in the program that were relevant and made sense, but it was just the way in which we wanted coaching and the strategies we were looking for didn't vibe with how we want to do business. So it was really a mismatch. And quite frankly, we should have been better qualified by that person before bringing us into this program. But it was really expensive. And so it's kind of spooked me from making much larger investments in myself. I've done smaller ones, like different memberships and things like that to learn other things like, more about like video marketing. And it's kind of like the cobbler's kids have no shoes over here. So like I can do so much for other people, but I get really in my head about doing things for myself. So I've been investing in like smaller things like that, smaller programs, smaller stuff to learn, because I just feel like that was just really scary for me. And I was really excited about it. And it just didn't pan out the way that we had hoped that it would. So I know that's like probably not the best answer for investing in yourself, but I think as an entrepreneur, it's, we all have those shitty decisions we've made that have cost us a lot of money. And that was one in the past couple of years that I wish we didn't do. So I'm building up that muscle again to begin kind of investing in myself monetarily.
Yeah.
Now I invest in myself in ways of like, I've gotten so much better with self-care and not burning myself to the ground. Having slow mornings, finally getting into a good routine, because that's been really difficult for me as well. Because I spent so many years working in the service industry where I was working nights, and then I switched to working to the 9 to 5. And then I went over to like, you can make your own schedule. So I'm like, am I a night owl? Am I an early bird? Like, what am I? And so now I'm finally getting in a good rhythm and, going to the gym every day and that sort of stuff, which is super impactful and helps me feel better in my business and whatever. But yeah.
I love that.
So,
No,
it's a ride.
It definitely is. Entrepreneurship is is a roller coaster of roller coasters that you're building as you're running down the track. And I do like that you shared how you invested in yourself, and it turned out not a bad investment because there were still some gems that you could pull out of it, but it taught you how to feel how to qualify. Now you can qualify those bigger purchases, and instead of waiting to be qualified by the other people. And I think it's a great lesson to teach and share with the audience, because everybody's scared. Like they know, oh wait, if I'm going to go into that 10K, I have to make sure this is a 10K that's for me. So I'm going to have to do double due diligence when I get to that level. So I think it's a great lesson that you just shared with us, that you learned and that the audience can take away from. Speaking of your husband, because working with a significant other can be difficult for people, and juggling a successful career and personal passions can be demanding. How do you and your husband maintain a healthy work-life balance, and what advice do you have for other entrepreneurs who want to find harmony between their personal and professional beliefs, or if they work with their significant other?
Yeah, it's a challenge, I will say. The good thing is we have a really, really good marriage as far as we are open and communicating. I don't know if you can tell by my vibe, but I pretty much am like, here's what's up. And
No, I couldn't get that at all.
I'm
Not at
not
all.
one of those women that's like, I'm fine. Just guess what's wrong with me. Like, that is not me. I'm like, this is why I'm mad. Let's figure it out. Let's move on. Whatever, keep moving. So that helps. We have great communication, but it's what we've learned, and it's taken us 4 years now to like get to this point, is like, we kind of have to work together, but separately. So like I work with some clients, he works with some clients. What we realized was there was like a communication breakdown when we were trying to work together, because we do things so differently that it just was not working. And it's a totally different experience when you come to that conclusion, have that conversation of like, I love you, but like, this isn't working in this way. And so now we're like in a really great group where he's got stuff going on, I've got stuff going on, but then we come together and collaborate. We talk about what we're doing. We help each other with each other's clients and things like that. But yeah, I mean, it's a ride. It's interesting working with your spouse. But it's fun. You know, we love the freedom. We get to do whatever we want, which is worth it. But it's a lot of work. You have to learn a lot about each other. You have to figure out how to separate things and not get angry and try to separate work and, you know, your marriage. So yeah, we definitely don't have it figured out, but I feel like we're moving in the right direction. So
I think the open communication part is the most important part in that, because if you guys aren't communicating, obviously in your marriage or in work, it's going to fail. So I like that, one, you're not one of those women or one of those people who go, just figure out what's wrong with me because I'm fine. That helps. I think that's probably, I'm pretty sure that's probably one of the bigger aspects that helps keep your marriage on track, and as well as keeping the business rolling properly.
Yeah.
I want to know if you could give a piece of advice to the audience that is listening, not about investing in themselves, but about figuring out if entrepreneurship is right for them. Because some people may believe, ooh, it's a fun, I got that freedom, but as entrepreneurs, the freedom can overside us and we can get lost in that freedom. So what advice would you have for someone who's thinking about going on? They think that it's going to be good, like maybe a warning or some piece of advice that can help them.
Yeah, I think you really have to sit and think about like, if you have the grit and the toughness to handle the bad stuff, because when things get rough, like client conversations, you know, sometimes you have to get lawyers involved. Sometimes there's conflict, you know, that stuff is hard. And you just have to like know yourself and know like what you're made of before taking that jump. Because I feel like something that's been going on so much in the online space is like, you know, all these gurus and people are like, you can start a business. I see it a lot with ad management, right? Like, start an ad manager business. It's amazing. It's going to change your life. And it's like, some of these people should not be starting businesses. Like, can they learn to run ads? Yes. But like, you're telling them that it's going to be rainbows and sunshine and you can charge so much money and it's so in demand. And it's like, can these people handle it when there's a real issue and things are happening? And if they can't, that's fine. Like, not everybody needs to be an entrepreneur. It makes the world go around. People's interests, what they like, their passions. But I think, before you get into entrepreneurship, yes, the great stuff is great. The freedom, blah, 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 unlimited income, all that. But like, you got to think about the other side and be like, is that something that I can handle? Is it something that I'm willing to also professionally develop myself to be able to handle? Or if it's something that's just like, I know that I definitely can't do that. And just know yourself. And I think, I think entrepreneurs know when that we're entrepreneurs and that's what we want to do. And so having self-awareness, know what you're about, I think that will help you on your journey of deciding whether or not this path is right for you.
Ooh, I love that. Before we get to the last question, because I'm curious, because you like the finer things in life, like, like wine, cheese, relaxing with your husband, all these finer things in life, cuddling with the Boston Terriers, which always fun. They give unlimited love. Gotta love dogs.
Me too.
How does loving those finer things impact the business?
I like to blend them. It's been interesting because the more that I do the fun stuff that I like, the more business opportunities come from it. So like my husband likes to play golf and smoke cigars. So he just smokes cigars with a bunch of dudes that end up being great business partners and referral partners and all that kind of stuff. So it's interesting kind of how it like ends up going hand in hand and like doing that stuff. And, you know, it puts us in a position to help the business grow.
Yeah. I love that. I love how the finer things in life have been able to be a better referral thing for a referral practice for you and help you connect with the people that can help you grow your business. I love that. And then that's a great piece of advice. Your hobbies can help you grow your business when you make those connections.
Oh yeah. If you're intentional about like who you're around, that is one of the biggest things that can help you grow your business fast, because you can't do this by yourself. I mean, you can, but you're not going to like it.
It's a lot more work. It's a lot more work if you do it yourself.
Yeah. And it's lonely, especially if you have an online based business. You know, there's like days sometimes where I'm just in here like, I haven't been outside, you know? But if you're spending time around people that are older than you, doing, you know, at a different point in their life that you can learn from, they want to help, like that's the fastest way to really help yourself grow, is just getting in those rooms. And whether it's smoking cigars or drinking wine or sharing a common, whatever it is, super impactful.
I love that. We are coming to the end, which I hate because Megan, this is the second time we've chatted on the podcast, and I've enjoyed every single moment of it.
Same. Thank you.
Thank you for that. But here's a very important question. I have 10-year-old Megan right here. She's a Spitfire. She hit me before. I don't know why. But what's one piece of advice you want to hand to your 10-year-old self if you could?
Don't give up and just keep going, because it all works out. You can do it. I
love it. It's straight to the point, just like you've been this whole episode, Megan. I love it. It's pure, simple, just don't give up and be yourself. I love it. Megan, I'm going to jump off stage here. I want you to speak specifically to my audience about how they can connect with you, how they can work with ChimeHouse Media, and everything else that you guys offer. So the floor is yours. Whoops. Wrong button.
Whoa, tricked me.
Wrong button. I was going on the stage here. No, this is the button I want to push. There we go.
I love it. Thank you. Yes. So I love to hang out on Instagram. I love a good voice note. So you can connect with me right here at ChimeHouse Media, see what we've got going on, the services we provide. And I just love to meet folks. So feel free to slide in my DMs. You can check us out also at chimehousemedia.com, learn a little bit more about our services and a little bit more about our story, and get to see my husband. He's on the website, so you'll get to see what he's all about and hear a little bit more about our overall story together. And yeah, feel free to reach out. That's where I hang out.
I love it. Megan, again, thank you so much for spending some time with me and my audience and sharing all your amazing knowledge and your journey with us here through ChimeHouse and your entrepreneurial journey.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure, as always.
To my audience, as always, check out the show notes, because you may find out, if you're a podcaster, there's this podcast audience amplifier program that Megan runs through ChimeHouse that is amazing. Amazing results. Every time I go on Facebook, I see the results that Megan has been getting for her clients. So you definitely want to connect with her, at least on Facebook, Instagram, or on LinkedIn, and see how crazy cool her podcast amplifier, audience amplifier is, the PAA. I'm going to continue to call it PAA.
Yep.
The PA is, check out the show notes down below. I thank you so much for listening, Megan. Thank you again for being here. And remember, always invest in yourself.